Hello friends, and welcome back to Tom Teaches Guitar. In the last video we took an in-depth look at the anatomy of the acoustic guitar. In today's video we're going to be taking a similar look at the makeup of the electric guitar. At its core, the electric shares the same basic structure as its unplugged cousin. Headstock at the top, neck in the middle, body on the bottom. But the electric can get a whole lot more complicated thanks to the components that we find attached to these core parts. Starting on the headstock again, you're far more likely to find these things, happy little string trees. These are small clips that sit on a headstock and help give the strings the right break angle. This is the angle of the string once it's past the nut. You see, on guitars with bent headstocks, like the majority of Gibsons, the strings will naturally bend once they get past the headstock, which creates the right amount of tension and allows the strings to vibrate the way we need them to. On guitars with flat headstocks though, like the majority of Fenders for instance, you'll often see these retainers being used to help create the angle we need. Other than that, electric and acoustic headstocks are largely the same. The biggest difference you're most likely to see is in the nut, as some electric guitars will have what's called a locking nut if they have a special kind of bridge. More on that later. One other eccentricity you may see, although they ended up being not all that popular, is robotic tuners. Some companies, most notably Gibson and their G-Force system, dabble in self-tuning guitars, where you can strum the instrument and watch in amazement as it tunes itself. These systems are quite rare, however, as most players don't care for them. They can have a negative effect on tuning stability, meaning the guitar will go out of tune easier than it should do. And there are even horror stories from some players whose robot systems have gone full Skynet and completely detuned the guitar mid-performance. The neck stays largely the same on the electric guitar. The only major difference you'll see is in scale length, or how long the fretboard is from the nut to the bridge. Most electric guitars also have more frets than your standard acoustic, which allows players to hit notes much higher up the fretboard much more easily. Electric guitars typically feel easier to play than acoustics as well, and this can largely be put down to something called action. Put simply, the action of a guitar is the distance between the strings and the fretboard. The higher the action, the harder you have to press down on the string to get it to ring out clearly when played. Electric guitars tend to have much lower action than acoustics, which makes them feel much more comfortable to play for beginners or for people with limited dexterity in their fingers. High action isn't necessarily exclusive to acoustics, and it's usually something you'll find on cheaper guitars. Thankfully, with electrics, you can usually adjust the action easily by fiddling with the bridge, raising or lowering it until it's at a level that's comfortable for you. This is typically harder to do on acoustics because you may need to remove the bridge or saddle entirely to make adjustments, which isn't something everybody is comfortable doing. If you're a new player or you've been playing for a while and you suspect that your strings are too high off the fretboard, making it uncomfortable to play, it's always worth checking the action. You'd be surprised how much better even a really cheap guitar will feel to play once it's had its action adjusted. Something else we touched on in the last video was the truss rod. If you remember, this is an internal part of the neck of the guitar. It's basically a metal rod that runs along the inside of the neck and counteracts the tension placed on the neck by the steel strings. Over time, a guitar neck can be slowly bent out of shape by the amount of force being exerted on it by the strings. The truss rod can be adjusted one way or another to allow the neck to counteract this bending, keeping the guitar in working order. Most truss rods can be adjusted from the top of the guitar underneath the truss rod cover, like we discussed in the last video, but some guitars, especially electrics, let you adjust the rod from the bottom of the neck instead, like on this ESP. Moving down onto the body, this is where you'll find the most differences between electric and acoustic guitars. The most immediate difference is that electrics don't need to form a chamber with their pieces the way that acoustics do. The defining characteristic of an electric guitar are these, the pickups. Pickups are a huge part of guitar sound, and we could do an entire video on the different types and the way that they work. But for this video, we'll just focus on the basics. Essentially, a pickup is a magnet wrapped in a coil that detects the vibration of the strings and converts it into an electrical signal that can then be amplified, giving us the sound we all know and love. The majority of pickups fall into one of three types: single coils, humbuckers, and P90s. The main difference between these three types of pickups is simply down to the number of coils wrapped around the magnets. They all have a different sound, giving them a different feel when played, and are largely used for different styles and genres of music. You'll typically see single coils on things like Stratocasters, and are used for a lot of clean lead playing without too much heavy distortion. Humbuckers are the opposite. You'll tend to find these on guitars that are used for heavier genres like metal, and they're often used with lots of gain to give them an aggressive, rough sound. The beginner guitarist doesn't have to worry about the technical ins and outs of the pickup just yet. If you're starting out and you have an electric guitar, the most important thing for the time being is that the pickups work. A lot of players tend to get caught up in this idea that certain pickups and certain guitars can only be used for specific genres of music. But there's a popular saying in the guitar world that tone is in the fingers. If you're a metalhead and you want to play heavy, loud music with loads of distortion, but you only have access to a guitar with single coils, don't worry. Don't fret. You will still be able to get the kind of sound you're looking for by playing with your amp settings and dialing in the right tone with your guitar's controls. Speaking of controls, let's explore those. To the beginner, it can be quite intimidating to look at an electric guitar, see all these dials and switches and not know where to start. But once you understand what they're designed for, they're actually very useful, easy little tools that you can use to give your playing a whole range of different sounds and feels. For this video, we'll take a look at the controls on my Stratocaster, because the Strat is one of the most common guitars on the planet. And there are plenty of really good, cheap Strat models that get sold every year specifically for the beginner market. Now the first thing to note is that this Strat has 3 pickups, which means the selector here is a 5-way selector, meaning it has 5 different positions that allow us to use the neck and middle, middle and bridge, or bridge pickup whenever we want. Moving on to the knobs specifically, we have 3 on this guitar, 1 volume and 2 tone. The volume is the easiest one to understand because it does exactly what you would expect it to do and controls the overall output of everything on the guitar. Basically, if this knob is turned down, we get a nice quiet guitar. When this knob is cranked up, we get angry neighbours. The other controls are a bit different, but arguably more useful. The tone control essentially changes the amount of treble you get from your pickup. Again, if you have no musical background, that might not mean anything to you, so for a quick way to understand, let's think of it like this. The sound we make when playing is made up of 3 different frequencies: bass, the deep low-end frequencies, mid-range, the medium frequency that rounds everything out, and treble, the higher, glassy sound frequency. Sometimes when we play, we might want to dial in more or less treble depending on the kind of sound we're trying to achieve. This is what the tone knob allows us to do. Now, there is of course a lot more to it than that. You can find pages and pages online detailing the exact frequencies in hertz and showing the waveforms, etc. But again, we don't need to worry about that. The best way of getting your head around tone control is to simply play your guitar and mess around with the tone as you play to get an idea of the kind of effect it has on your sound. The last major difference between electric and acoustic guitars lies here at the bridge. As we learned in the last video, the acoustic bridge is usually just a simple block of wood with a saddle for the strings to sit on, and 6 pins holding them in place. On electrics, the bridge can become much more complicated. Thankfully, however, they all still serve the same purpose, which is to give the strings a starting point where they can stretch up the neck and end of the headstock. There are 3 main types of bridge on electrics: string through, stop bar tailpiece, and tremolo. The string through is arguably the simplest as it's not too dissimilar from an acoustic bridge. Basically, the strings pass through the body of the guitar using these holes in the back, and there will be some form of saddle for them to sit on at the front. Nice, easy, utilitarian. The stop bar tailpiece, despite having an elaborate name, is also similarly simple. Here, the strings pass through the holes in the stop bar itself, which is a block of metal that sits hooked on these screws on the body of the guitar. The stop bar is actually loose, and it's only once the strings are wound up, creating tension, that the stop bar will be held in place. Once the strings are through the stop bar, they can be placed in the saddle here, which is just a much more complicated looking version of the saddle that we saw on our acoustic in the last video. Then they can be ran up the neck and wound. One of the big advantages with this type of bridge is that they are super easy to adjust. On an acoustic guitar, if the action, the gap between the strings and the fretboard, is too high, you may need to adjust the bridge. Typically this involves removing the strings, taking the saddle out of the bridge, filing it down a minimal amount, reinstalling it back into the bridge, and then trying again and again until you've got the right feel. Not only is this time consuming, but not everybody has the inclination or the tools to do it. With this type of bridge on an electric guitar, however, you can adjust the height of the bridge itself by turning these screws the stop bar rests on. And you can even adjust the height of the saddle in the same way, and all you need is a screwdriver. The last type of bridge is definitely the most complicated, but for the sake of this video, we'll try and keep it as simple as possible: the tremolo. Tremolo systems, usually called trems to save us all time, are a special system that allows you to move the strings of the guitar slightly closer and further from the body, changing the pitch entirely, which allows you to make some really cool sounds, especially when combined with other techniques like dragging your pick or playing with lots of distortion.
Here's my voice. Whoa, bigger.
There are actually lots of different types of trem system, but there are two that are the most popular: the Fender style synchronized tremolo and the Floyd Rose floating tremolo. You will almost never see a Floyd Rose on a beginner level guitar, and it's for good reason. They may be extremely versatile and a favourite for metal players around the world, but they are a nightmare to live with if you're not used to them. The Floyd has what's called a locking nut, where it essentially clamps down on the strings at the nut, preventing you from using the tuners on the headstock. This is because the strings are tuned down here on the bridge using these fine tuners. It may seem needlessly elaborate, but this system means that the strings can hold their tuning stability very well even when you're wailing on the whammy bar. Speaking of the whammy bar, this is the only part of the trem system that we need to worry about right now. This is essentially what lets us control the bridge on a guitar with a trem system. In simple terms, you play a string, and then you move this arm closer and further from the body of the guitar, which in turn moves the bridge and changes the pitch of the guitar. Not every guitar has a trem system, of course, and not every guitarist uses them. They tend to be found more in metal and rock, and some blues players use them a lot, but ultimately they are a matter of taste. I personally don't really care for them. In fact, I blocked off the trem system on my favourite guitar. This is because I use a technique called palm muting quite a lot, which is where you deaden the sound of the strings using the base of your palm. Unfortunately, because my trem has a strat, because my Strat has a trem system, I would often find myself pushing down on the bridge accidentally, and all of a sudden I'm playing in the completely wrong key. Thankfully, with this type of trem system, it's actually really easy to block away the trem on the inside of the guitar. So now I can slap away on the bridge as much as I like, the pitch won't be an issue. The final thing to cover on electrics is this little thing. Nice and easy, this is called the input jack, or just jack if you know him well. You plug one end of your instrument cable in here, other end into your amp, and you're good to go. The jack tends to move around depending on the model of the guitar, but they're always easy to find. So that should cover just about everything you need to know about the electric guitar as a beginner. Hopefully there wasn't anything too confusing, but of course, as always, if there was, let me know down below in the comments. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at TomFoxMusic and fire away with your questions. Let me know if there's anything specific that you want to see a video on, and feel free to subscribe so you can keep updated whenever there is a new video. Speaking of new videos, now that you should be all caught up with the parts of your acoustic or electric guitar, in the next one, we're going to get round to the business of finally tuning up and learning to play your guitar. Other than that, stay safe everybody, keep learning to play, keep making music, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.